This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at Ease, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery. If you want top quality cannabis products that are properly tested, labeled, and packaged, brought right to your door in less than an hour, and if you live in a part of California where Ease is active, you can just open up ease.com to get your order in, assuming it's during the hours when legal marijuana delivery is allowed. That's because following all relevant state cannabis laws and regulations is just how Ease rolls. Ease's customers benefit from that because of the higher quality standards and customer experience enjoyed by everyone who places an order through ease.com, spelled E-A-Z-E. From basic flower to pre-rolls and from edibles to concentrates, when you want top quality legal marijuana products delivered to you in California, you just need to start by opening up ease.com. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, June 14th, 2018, and you're tuned in to episode 510 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We start off this terrific Thursday up in Canada, where the federal government has rejected a set of amendments passed out of the Canadian Senate on a bill to legalize adult use marijuana. We've been tracking this storyline for as long as it's been active, with Canada set to become the first G6 nation to legalize adult use marijuana, just as soon as it can pass a bill laying out the details for how that will actually work. Bill C-45 was just passed out of the Senate with a number of controversial amendments, including giving the ability to individual provinces to ban home grow, as well as handing over to federal authorities the right to limit the amount of THC found in legal cannabis products. The entire raft of changes was tossed out in the version of the new bill that will now go before the House of Commons for another vote in the next week or so. If passed through the House of Commons, Bill C-45 will then swing back to the Senate, which can either capitulate on the more progressive House of Commons version or play legislative tennis by sending back another amended version. Marijuana Moment grabs the final top two headlines today, with Kyle Yeager scooping up his site's first story with a look at a vote from a U.S. Senate committee held yesterday on a piece of legislation that will legalize industrial hemp. We've touched on this one recently as an amendment that removes hemp from being defined alongside traditional smokable marijuana was inserted into the 2018 Farm Bill, a major piece of must-pass Senate agricultural legislation. Yesterday, as Kyle is nicely reporting, the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry voted 20-1 in favor of the Farm Bill. If signed into law, the hemp amendment would free up hemp farmers to use business banking services and would allow them to grow and process and sell their hemp nationwide. Pop over to Marijuana Moment for all the details on this one. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Picking up the second Marijuana Moment story today is site founder and Uber cannabis journalist Tom Angel, who wrote a good piece about another vote held in Washington, D.C. that didn't quite go as well for us as the previous headline. Yesterday, the House Appropriations Committee voted down a proposed measure that would have stopped the Department of Treasury from punishing banks and other financial institutions that choose to do business with state legal marijuana companies. There's a ton of background information on Tom's story here that I'll also open up while you're over at Marijuana Moment. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out in headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Ease, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery. Ease.com, spelled E-A-Z-E, is, of course, where you can go to place an order for legal California marijuana products for delivery, but it's also a fantastic place to go for valuable bits of industry insight and analysis developed by the editorial and analytical team over at Ease. Ease is sitting on a very large sales data pipe, which they properly aggregate and anonymize before setting their writing and numbers wizards free on it, who parse out information, knowledge, and wisdom to be shared up at ease.com. If you could benefit from having a better understanding of cannabis consumers, then you really need to check out all that's up for offer over at ease.com. Just open up ease.com and scroll down a touch past the ordering box and sales items to find their treasure trove of editorial and analytical gold. Big thanks to everyone over at Ease for all the support. All right, time for the blitz. My buddy Chris Crane, who listeners of our weekly podcast Marijuana Today know well as a longtime host and regular, penned a great story over in Forbes looking at how the lack of access to traditional banking services most negatively impacts people who aren't wealthy, aka most of us. Chris makes the great point that without access to traditional banking loans, wannabe cannabis entrepreneurs who need to raise sometimes millions of startup dollars are either left out in the cold because they can't raise the proper funds or are forced to sell off the majority of their business to investors. Make sure to open this one up. This week in Massachusetts, a new state commission met for the first time to study the issue of driving under the influence of cannabis. The 13-member commission is tasked with making recommendations to the state legislature on how to best regulate marijuana and driving. Dan Adams and Shelley Murphy did a good job of rounding up all the major arguments around the issue, so I'd add this one as well to your list of stories to dive into fully. Lots of good reading today. WHYY takes a good look at the current legislative status for Delaware's House Bill 110, a proposed piece of legislation that would legalize adult use marijuana. Earlier this year, a state task force released a report looking at the pros, cons, and logistical requirements and roadblocks associated with adult use legalization. Delaware lawmakers wrap up their legislative session at the end of this month, so this is another bill that needs to make quick work of passage. An enormous deal was just announced up in Canada as industry giant Canopy Growth released details for a planned $400 million Canadian fundraising round. New Cannabis Ventures has all the numbers and details. Entrepreneur pulled together a good list of the various celebrities involved in legal marijuana, along with quotes from some about their motivations for getting into the industry. Up in Alaska, a novel idea for how to tax legal marijuana products was put up as a suggestion during a meeting held yesterday by the state's Alcohol and Marijuana Control Office that was dismissed quickly as a viable option. Erica McConnell, the office's director, suggested that instead of taxing legal marijuana at the cultivator level at $800 a pound, the state instead tax products based on their THC content. The line of discussion didn't last too long, and from the reporting over at marijuana.com, it doesn't seem like there was much support for the idea. And finally for today, Marijuana Business Daily is another story worthy of a full read with their look at how the state of Oregon plans to monitor the outdoor harvest of legal marijuana cultivators in a bid to reduce the amount of cannabis diverted into the illicit market. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission has a public meeting to talk about the plans scheduled for June 15th. If you're involved in the Oregon market, this is a good read ahead of attending that meeting. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at MJTodayDaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Ease, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today.
One take, Shay. One take.